Sunrise, followed by a moment of silence to honor the memories of David Oakley, a Mountain Trail Middle School employee since 2016, and Marie Arters, a Horizon High School teacher since 2005. Thank you very much. You may be seated. Another round of applause from the students from Sunrise. May I have roll call, please?
Mrs. Baker,
Here.
Mrs. Greenberg,
Here.
Mrs. Christensen,
Here.
Mrs. Case,
Here.
Mr. Pantera.
Here.
Next on the agenda is approval of agenda. Dr. Bells.
Thank you, President Case. Items approved by consent will not come up for discussion during the meeting, but will be approved when the agenda is adopted. This is possible since members of the governing board received the agenda along with backup materials at least 24 hours prior to the meeting and have time to review and consider all items. Prior to the agenda being adopted, members of the governing board or audience may ask that an item be removed from the consent agenda and brought to the floor for discussion at the appropriate place on the agenda. I would like to offer the agenda as posted.
Does any member of the governing board wish to have an item removed from the consent agenda? Does any member of the audience wish to have an item removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, Mrs. Baker, may I have a motion to approve the meeting agenda and recommended consent agenda items?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is governing board statements. I'd like to start with Mr. Pantera.
Thank you, President Case. Good evening, everyone. I'm glad you're all here on this International Peace Day. It's the United Nations International Peace Day today, so I'm glad you're all here thinking peaceful thoughts, I hope. We sometimes get overwhelmed by the conflicts we hear about in the world, here and there, different countries. We sometimes forget to see what actually is going on correctly, where peace is happening, where people are getting along and working together well. So make sure today you maybe think about that. This last, a couple weeks ago, I was at the Arizona School Board Association's Law Conference. It was a very fascinating place to be. I learned quite a bit there. But they had this one guest speaker, Dr. Michelle Borba, and she talked about students not just surviving, but thriving by being resilient. She's got this great book. And the reason I'm bringing it up to you and talking about it, I'm a little homesick for running book talks. All those years teaching gifted students doing Socratic discussions, I'm kind of missed that. So if anybody wants to, I haven't read this book yet. I'm holding off to see if there's anybody out there that wants to start a book talk about it. You know, contact me, we'll reach out, make it a thing that happens. I hope you do, I really do, because those kind of discussions help everyone to understand a lot about students and how to make them resilient. No matter what happens, we'd like them to meet challenges. We want them to attack those challenges, but sometimes they have difficulties. This is kind of a discussion about how to improve that resiliency so they push through. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Greenberg? No comment, okay. Mrs. Baker?
Thank you. First of all, thank you everyone for taking the time to be here tonight at our new start time of 6:30. I also was at the ASBA Law Conference with Mr. Pantera, and it was very informative. These trainings are so helpful to us as governing board members to make sure that we are governing with integrity and doing the best by our community, our schools, our parents, and our students. I also want to say congratulations to Fireside for being a blue ribbon school. My kids are fortunate to attend there, and I know Dr. Else works hard and is dedicated to making Fireside the best school that it can be. I also want to recognize Hispanic Heritage Month and Happy Independence Day for everyone. And as we are between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, I would like to wish everyone a happy Rosh Hashanah. May this new year bring you good health and happiness, and may you have a meaningful fast. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Christensen?
I would like to thank everybody here today. Thank you for being part of this public meeting. Nancy, our board president, Mrs. Case, always reminds us that although we're doing our business in front of you, this is actually for you. You are the people that we represent, and so thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. I would like to thank many of the principals that have given me school tours over the last couple of weeks since the last board meeting. Principal Dennis from Paradise Valley High, Principal Robertson from Larkspur, Principal Woods from Hidden Hills, Principal Williams from Echo Mountain Primary, Principal Rankin, Echo Mountain Intermediate, Principal Schoonover from Wildfire, and Principal, how do you pronounce Sky Crossing? I wrote it down wrong. Cottle. I wrote it down wrong, so I apologize. Principal Cottle from Sky Crossing. So I just want to thank all of you for taking the time to give me school tours. That's one of actually my favorite parts of being on the board, is to get to see all the amazing educators, all the amazing principals, and our students. And so that's all I have today.
Thank you so much. I just want to give a shout out to the teachers who work so hard in our district, and for the parents who support their children in their education. I've been talking to my children and grandchildren lately, and they're in the throes of AP classes, and then I know some young adults that I frequently speak to, and it's a busy time, and they're preparing for a future that's much different than the things I prepared for in high school. We have a different world out there with many technological changes, and I appreciate that this district is nimble enough to make the changes we need to help students in an ever-changing world. So thank you for being here tonight. Next on the agenda is awards and recognitions.
Thank you, President Case. At this time, I'd like to invite the governing board to join me in front of the dais.
Good evening, President Case, governing board members, Dr. Bales, members of cabinet, and attendees both in person and virtual. Tonight, we have several recognitions to share with you. This evening, we'll be inviting our honorees to the front of the room for recognition and a photo. So when I call your name, please make your way to the front of the room. Our first honoree was recognized by the Yale Office of Undergraduate Admissions as an outstanding educator for supporting and inspiring students. Nominated by a former student and current Yale attendee, this teacher is credited for deeply impacting her students' lives and building a strong educational foundation. Impressively, she is one of 80 teachers who received this distinguished honor globally. Please help me welcome to the dais the 2023 Yale Educator Award recipient from Shadow Mountain High School, Charlie Morgan. Our next honoree was named the 2023 Arizona International Baccalaureate Primary Years Program Teacher of the Year. This is an honor that is awarded annually by AZIBS to one K-6 teacher for distinguished teaching performance and exemplary fidelity to IB principles and practices. Please put your hands together for, from Quail Run Elementary School, Michelle Stortz. Our next recognition is the recipient of the Paradise Valley Education Association's Recognition of Professional Standards Award for Teachers. The honoree this evening will be introduced by Ms. Diane Siekman, PVEA President.
Good evening, President Case, Governing Board members, Dr. Bales, Cabinet, and guests. I'm pleased to present the PVA Props Award this evening to Crystal Farrell, a second grade teacher from Palomino Primary. Crystal was nominated by 4 of her colleagues for this award, and this is what they shared about her. Crystal is an amazing teacher and a member of the second grade team at Palomino Primary. She always puts the needs of her students first and is committed to their academic and social growth. Crystal possesses unwavering positivity. Even on the most stressful days, she manages to stay upbeat, always shows up with a smile, and doesn't let her students see anything as wrong. She helps her students see her classroom as a safe place where they can thrive. She goes above and beyond, sometimes using her own money to provide everything from treats to hygiene products. She treats each student with caring and respect, regardless of what issues they bring into her classroom. Her wonderful rapport with the kids allows them to feel comfortable in her care. She notices every change in appearance or demeanor, and so she often spots emotional struggles or needs the students may have, and she addresses it in the kindest of ways. Another colleague said, "I love when I get to spend time in Crystal's room, working with her and her students. Her classroom feels like a family where everyone is welcome." She plans engaging lessons that meet her students where they are and encourages them to work through the challenging tasks. Crystal is constantly going out of her way to meet the needs of her students and her own peers. I also appreciate how helpful and collaborative Crystal is with other teachers in the school. She's always willing to help a new teacher with planning or listening to someone after a rough day. I am inspired to keep growing because of teachers like Crystal. Every time a new curriculum adoption is thrown our way, she rallies the team to start making it our own and helps us see it as an opportunity and not a chore. Students in her class excel year after year because she employs the best practices in every subject, every day, every year. She is a cheerful, strong, smart, and caring teacher, and we are so lucky to work with her. PV is so lucky to have her. I myself am proud to present the PVEA Professionals Recognizing Other Professionals Award to my colleague, Crystal Farrell.
Oh, so I can have one for the staff. Thank you.
Last but certainly not least this evening is the Paradise Valley Education Support Professional of the Month. PVSEA President Ms. Michelle Courtwright is here this evening to make the presentation.
President Cakes, Governing Board, Dr. Bells, and Cabinet. I have had the pleasure of working with Hillary Grossman personally, and so this is an easy one for me. Hillary is actually an instructional assistant in our resource program, but that's not where her superpower shines. Her superpower shines in her before and after school bus duty, her playground cafeteria duty. Hillary has taken it upon herself to know these kids by name. She knows their siblings. She knows their parents. She knows what cars they drive. She can tell when they walk in the morning what kind of day they've had. She can celebrate with them. She can figure out, what do you need today? If there's a student on a buddy bench, Hillary's going to be the first person to go over and figure out, what do they need? Do I send a child over there? She is an amazing person with these kids, and I wish I could say kids came to school because they wanted to be in a classroom. They don't. They come to school for the relationships they build with peers and educators. And Hillary is a wonderful example of that. She also does things for our staff. If there's a bulletin board that a teacher doesn't have time to do, Hillary will do it. If we need t-shirts done, Hillary will do it. If there's a fundraiser or something after the school day, Hillary shows up. Sometimes she brings little Daisy, her little furry friend. She has gone so far as to figure out which one of us have furry friends, and she makes dog cookies for us. She is the perfect example of the type of employee this district needs so that everyone feels welcome when they walk on a campus. So it is with pleasure that I recognize Hillary Grossman for ESP of the Month this year.
And that, President Case, concludes this evening's awards and recognitions.
That's one of my favorite times to hear about our employees in our district. That is just wonderful, and our successes and their awards. Next on the agenda is superintendent comments. Dr. Bells.
Thank you, President Case. In PV schools, we engage, inspire, nurture our students through high-quality instruction, meaningful educational opportunities, and dynamic learning experiences. Our mission. Many of those experiences can be found at our high schools, 4 of which were recently named among America's best. Congratulations to Shadow Mountain, Pinnacle, Paradise Valley, and Horizon High Schools for being named among the best public high schools in the nation by U.S. News and World Report. Rankings were based on college preparedness, graduation rates, and student performance on standardized tests. This truly is a testament to the hard work of our students, staff, and teachers, as well as their commitment to the journey of excellence. We're incredibly proud of these rankings and believe they reflect the dedication of our students, staff, and community. Congratulations to all of our students, staff, and the parents and guardians in these school communities. To learn how your student can have one of these impressive high school experiences, visit our website at pvschools.net. Next, join us in celebrating National Hispanic Heritage Month from September 15th through October 15th. Each year, we observe National Hispanic Heritage Month by recognizing the contributions made by Latinos and Hispanic people to American society and culture, as well as American citizens whose ancestors came to America from Spain, Mexico, Central America, South America, and the Spanish-speaking nations of the Caribbean. Next, we take the great opportunity to recognize and congratulate to retired Shadow Mountain High School Athletic Director Ron Safick, who has been inducted into the Arizona Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association's Hall of Fame. Ron is here tonight. Ron, would you stand? Wave for us. There you go. Ron's remarkable journey spans over a decade of commitment to sports and student athletes. During his prestigious 13 years as an athletic director, his leadership and vision were acknowledged not once, but twice with the coveted 4A Athletic Director of the Year award. His dedication and accomplishments have impacted countless student athletes. Congratulations, Ron. Thank you. Two of our Horizon High School seniors, Dylan Nolan Cook and Carolyn O'Connor, teamed up with Teen Lifeline and Paradise Valley Community College to collaborate on a local public service announcement geared towards students who are struggling with intrusive thoughts, letting them know that they are not alone and that there is help. Carolyn and Dylan volunteer with this peer-to-peer service, which has been a cornerstone of the Valley for over 37 years. The PSA will air on TV and social media this month as part of Teen Suicide Prevention Month. If you have a teen in need, we encourage you to reach out to Teen Lifeline at teenlifeline.org. And finally, Donuts with the District. Check out Donuts with the District. This is an opportunity for parents, guardians, and community members to meet with cabinet members, board members, and me in an informal setting throughout the district. This casual meet and greet setting offers the community a chance to hear from district leadership, as well as provide feedback on timely educational topics. This event, supporting the PV Schools strategic plan, promotes community strength and collaboration within the district. Check out a Donuts event this year. Our next event is scheduled for September 28th. It will be held at Sky Crossing Elementary School. And last but not least, as mentioned just a little bit ago by one of our board members, we are very proud to recognize Fireside Elementary School as recipient of the Blue Ribbon School Award. What an amazing honor, and congratulations to Fireside Elementary for being named one of the 2023 National Blue Ribbon Schools. Fireside is being recognized by the U.S. Department of Education for its overall high academic performance and is one of 350 schools nationwide and one of only 4 schools in Arizona to earn this prestigious honor. I'm so proud of their exemplary achievement. Winning this award is no small feat, as only high-performing schools that model effective and innovative practices are eligible for recognition. Fireside is an example of one of the many choice educational opportunities in PV schools, and this honor sets Fireside apart as a national leader being recognized as an exemplary high-performing school among the state's highest performing schools as measured by state assessments or nationally normed tests. Congratulations to the Fireside community. We look forward to celebrating the achievement more later this semester. I'd like to ask Dr. Else and anybody else from Fireside to please stand and be recognized at this time. Those conclude my comments, President Case.
Thank you, Dr. Bells. Next on the agenda is items for approval. Dr. Bells.
President Case, governing board members, cabinet, and guests, tonight we present for approval a new administrator in the facilities team. Dr. Holmes, would you please?
Thank you, Dr. Bales. Madam President, members of the board. John Glenny is currently a Tech 4 in our Facilities and Construction Department, and he has been a valued employee of the department since 2014. If approved, he will receive salary and benefits in accordance with the COA bargaining agreement. We recommend you approve Mr. Glenny to be the next construction and bond projects supervisor.
May I have a motion to approve the recommendation to hire John Glenny for the position of Supervisor of Construction and Bond Projects as presented?
So moved.
Any board member wishing to make a comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously.
Congratulations, Mr. Glenny.
Congratulations. Welcome to your new position. That's wonderful. Is there any family or friends with you that you'd like to have recognized? Thank you. Nice to have you here. Next on the agenda, Dr. Bells.
President Case, governing board members, cabinet, and guests, tonight we present for approval the annual compensation and benefits for participants in our phased retirement program for 2024. This program is an integral part of retaining high-quality teachers. Dr. Holmes?
Thank you, Dr. Barrels. Madam President, members of the board, we have your consideration the annual compensation and benefits for our phased retirement program for the 2024-2025 school year, and we recommend your approval as presented.
It's G2. We have one comment from Diane Newman.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me talk. I wanted to mention, I have a retired teacher that's a good friend of mine and two current teachers in the area, and I have 3 children that graduated from this school district. And I know that the teachers, many of them give a lot of their extra time on weekends, and they use a lot of their own funds for the special projects. And so I'm really in favor of compensating teachers as much as possible, and also with their retirement, helping them. And I believe that this is something that it edifies the whole community when teachers feel valued and have a good retirement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the annual compensation and benefits for participants in our phased retirement program as presented?
So moved.
Any board member wishing to make a comment? I'd like to make a comment. I think any way that we can help teachers be happy in their jobs and want to continue teaching with their long years of experience is a good thing. So I just wanted to say that my children have greatly benefited, as many of yours have, from the experience of teachers who continue to teach, and this is one way to keep them in our ranks. So thank you. Any other comments? No? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next on the agenda, Dr. Bells.
Thank you, President Case, governing board members, cabinet, and guests. And tonight we present for approval a memorandum of understanding between Homeless Youth Connection and the Paradise Valley Unified School District. Ms. Copen will present.
Thank you, President Case, Governing Board, Dr. Bales. Homeless Youth Connection is a partnership that allows us to better serve our homeless youth ages 13 through 21. They provide wraparound services for students at no cost to the student, school, or the district. The Homeless Youth Connection provides preventative measures for our students experiencing homelessness by providing tools and resources that they need to be successful in school. Some of these services include educational resources, including class fees, elective or club fees, Wi-Fi access, school supplies, hygiene products, basic clothing, employment resources, housing assistance, health insurance, and medical copays and prescriptions. PVUSD's social worker of special populations or the site-based social workers recommend eligible students for these services. If the student is interested in participating in the program, the youth coach will collaborate with the district to secure parent or guardian consent for minors under 18 years old. In 2021-22 school year, PVUSD referred 40 students to the Homeless Youth Connection, and in 22-23, we referred 9 students to this service. The MOU was reviewed and approved by our attorney.
We don't have any public comment on this. May I have a motion to approve the resolution number 551, Memorandum of Understanding between Homeless Youth Connection and Paradise Valley Unified School District as presented?
So moved.
Any board member wishing to make a comment? Mrs. Christensen.
as I look around the city, there's been a lot of changes in Phoenix and the surrounding areas, and it breaks my heart. I mean, for anybody that's homeless, but for a child. And so I'm really happy that there are services for children that through no fault of their own have to experience homelessness. And so I think it's very good and very positive that there is help for these individuals. And so I'm just glad to see that the state and the school districts are reaching out to these individuals.
Thank you. Any other comment from board members? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is Dr. Bells.
President Case, governing board members and guests, tonight we present for approval a new credit card to be issued to the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Sean Holmes, for the fiscal year 2024. And Ms. Berrigan will explain and present.
Thank you, President Case and Dr. Bales. This comes to us for a need of our Human Resources Department to use two vendors, DPS and Fieldprint, who only take credit cards as a form of payment for fingerprinting services. Use of these vendors will significantly improve the turnaround time for completion of the fingerprinting process for the district. And a new card is being issued, so activity limits will not be impacted with the existing cards. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
We don't have any public comment on this. May I have a motion to approve the new credit card to be issued to Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Sean Holmes, for the fiscal year 2024 as presented?
So moved.
Any board member wishing to make a comment? Mrs. Christensen?
So can you explain the difference in the process and procedures for what was in the past and now that we're going to be using the credit card? Is it the same process? We're just not doing purchase orders, or is that the case? Or can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah,
So I can
Mrs.
understand.
Christensen, a PO is still issued even when we use a credit card. We always have a PO for every purchase. I think it might be helpful, though, for Dr. Holmes to explain the change in DPS and their fingerprinting process that has initiated this.
I'm actually very excited about this. Nobody else will be excited about this, but I am particularly excited about this. The turnaround time for fingerprints is historically about 6 to 8 weeks when we submit to DPS. They've created a portal for non-criminal justice agencies such as Paradise Valley that's going to allow us to submit fingerprints electronically and get about approximately a 2-day turnaround. So the change in time that we're going to achieve is incredible and something that I've wished happened a decade ago, quite frankly. As it turns out, to use the portal as it's set up, they will not accept a PO. We have to use a credit card.
And so it's going to decrease the time that we can
Yes.
get certified teachers processed and individuals that.
Yes,
Well,
it's
anyway.
also going to save us money because currently because of that turnaround time being so lengthy, we have to run another background check with a third party, and we won't have to do that anymore. So we're going to achieve budget savings out of this.
I just have one more question. Is this credit card only solely for the fingerprinting, or do you get to go to Disneyland on this or anything, or what are the-
No, he does not get to go to Disneyland on
I am going to
this. I will
Disneyland
answer that
in a
one.
couple of weeks.
Okay,
No,
Not using that credit card.
it's for these two vendors.
okay, perfect. Thank
Yes.
you.
Any other comments? I am so excited about this because I have heard about fingerprinting taking forever for years and years and years. This is great news.
Tremendous impact, especially for our volunteers.
Volunteers and for substitutes, for all around, everything. So that is fabulous. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda, Dr. Bells.
President Case, Governing Board members, Cabinet and guests, and tonight we present for approval a travel request that offers the opportunity for 2 transportation professionals to learn the latest trends in special needs transportation, training, products, and services. And Ms. Berrigan is available to answer your questions. We recommend as presented.
We have no public comment on this. May I have a motion to approve the Business Operations Transportation Administration ESP employee travel request as presented?
So moved.
Any board member wishing to make a comment? Mrs. Christensen?
You know, I always like to ask about money, so travel requests. I was just wondering what the reason for sending 2 individuals rather than just one.
Yep, Mrs. Christensen, President Case, and board members, we are sending 2. There are multiple sessions, breakout sessions that run at the same time. And this way we can get all of those sessions covered if we send 2 people versus just sending 1 person.
Any other board members wishing to make a comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda, Dr. Bells.
President Case, Governing Board members, Cabinet and guests, and tonight we present for approval 2 preschool playground upgrades at 2 different sites. We also can answer any questions. Ms. Berrigan is available to answer any questions you might have, and we submit for approval as presented.
We have no public comment on this. May I have a motion to approve the purchase from current 1 GPA contract 2307P for playground equipment upgrades at Boulder Creek Elementary School and Pinnacle High School as presented?
So moved.
Any board member wishing to make a comment? May I just say it says Pinnacle High School playground equipment. They have a preschool there. I just wanted to let you all know why we're having playground equipment at the high school, although high school kids love swings. Okay. I know, a little big for those. Any board members wishing to make a comment? Mrs. Christensen?
Yes, and I'm been on the board over half a year now, so I'm getting used to the process and 1 GPA. I understand that these vendors are all pre-approved. When we do the due diligence to look for playground equipment, et cetera, are we now getting quotes? Is it still the same process where there's vendors that are approved? And can you explain what the research that we did to determine what we ended up choosing?
Yes, Mrs. Christensen, President Case. Generally, when we use a 1 GPA contract, you can go with any of the selected vendors. You can obtain what their pricing is for that, determine if that's reasonable and move forward. There are some projects where even still on the cooperative contract, we may check with a couple of vendors to see what the scope of work differences may look like. I don't know specifically which one we did on this. I would have to ask our director of purchasing because I hadn't asked for that question yet. So we can get a more specific answer for you later on.
Any other board member wishing to make a comment? Yes, Mrs. Greenberg?
Mrs. Barron, I know that we're going to be doing a presentation about ADA upgrades, et cetera. Do either of these fall under, upgrading for ADA as well?
Yes, they do. I have a presentation a little bit later on that talks about an assessment we had done regarding our playgrounds and how they relate to the Americans with Disabilities Act. And these changes to these playgrounds actually help us to be in compliance with those pieces. And we're fortunate enough that our community ed director, Natalie Wilcox, had a grant, the Child Care Stabilization Grant. And we're able to use these funds for that, so we don't have to use our bond dollars or any of our capital funding for it. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Any other questions?
I just missed the
Mrs.
last part of it.
Christensen?
You said there was a grant that
grant,
was
yep.
used, so
The-
it's not child. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions?
I abstain.
Okay, motion passes with 4 ayes and 1 abstention. Next on the agenda is Dr. Bells.
President Case, Governing Board members, Cabinet, and guests, tonight we present for approval an emergency generator upgrade at North Canyon High School. Ms. Berrigan is available to answer any questions. Otherwise, we present as submitted.
Are there any questions that anyone has on this?
I
Was
have a
it,
question.
okay,
You said it's an emergency upgrade situation.
It's a backup generator for like emergencies when the power
Okay,
goes
so
out
it's
in
not
lights.
emergency exception to the
No.
purchasing procurement.
The generator itself is for
Okay.
emergencies.
Thank you.
Apologize if that
Good
was
clarification.
Thank you.
misunderstanding. Thank you for the question.
and are there any other questions? Oh, excuse me, I apologize. May I have a motion, we have no public content, a comment. May I have a motion to approve the purchase from current PV contract 23-15 PV JOC for generator system upgrades at North Canyon High School as presented?
So moved.
Any board member wishing to make a comment or ask questions on this? Wasn't the last time this done in 1991?
1991, you got it.
Yeah, so it's time to make sure it can actually do its job.
Correct.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is Mrs. Berrigan.
Okay, thank you, President Case and board members. We have received the appraisal for the parking lot property located at 31st Street and Beck, not far from here. With this information, we are able to increase the monthly lease to $2,800 or $2,804. For the proposed term of 239 months, we're allowed to enter into a lease of 20 years minus 1 day. So that's why we did 239 months instead of 240 months. And then in addition to account for the minimal utility costs, we'll be rounding up that monthly rate to $2,900 per month. As a reminder, we're in the process of working with ROI Properties, which we've shared with the board, to review all of our leases. And consequently, some additional lease agreements will likely be coming before the board for some adjustments in the future. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. We have no public comment. May I have a motion to approve the renewal of the existing parking lot grounds lease for core construction as presented?
So moved.
Any board members wishing to make a comment? Mrs. Christensen?
First of all, I would like to thank you for reviewing the lease. I know that I can't remember what the original agreement was, but it was a much lower amount. And I didn't feel that it was the proper amount. And so I'm very happy that we really took a look and, did our due diligence and got an assessment of the property and raised that. Having said that, I'm also glad to see language on CPI increase because it's difficult, as we all know, properties increase. We're going through different changes in, our district and things like that. So I'm glad that there's language in there that we can go back and assess. At this point, however, I do feel that it is a long lease and 20 years is, and as I did read, we can break the lease or terminate the lease, and either party may terminate the lease. Is it annually?
January.
Yeah, yep, with 6 months notice. I would just like to make a motion to amend Article 4, 4.1. The original says the stated term of the lease shall be 20 years, less 1 day, beginning on September 1st, 2023 and ending on August 30th, 2043. I would like to make a motion to amend that to the term of the lease shall be 20 years, less 1 day, beginning on September 1st, 2023 and ending on August 30th, 2033, just so that we could reassess. And yes, I understand that there is language now to be able to adjust that with consumer price index, et cetera, but I would like to make that motion.
Is there a second for that motion? Seeing none, we'll go back to the original motion, which has been moved. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions?
I abstain.
Thank you. Motion passes with 4 ayes and 1 abstention. Next on the agenda is gifts and donations. We appreciate all donations to our district. We couldn't do what we do without the donations from so many generous people. I'd like to mention a few. Echo Mountain Intermediate School received $1,000 for the items for the school store, Being Kind store from Dorito Partners, Inc. Hidden Hills Elementary School received $6,100 from the PTO, it's a PTSA at for the PBIS program. Horizon High School received $3,000 from Jostens for faculty appreciation. North Canyon received $6,300 for dual enrollment, AP exam, and IB fees from the PV Schools Education Foundation. Paradise Valley High School received $9,300 for dual enrollment from the PV Schools Education Foundation. The Paradise Valley School District received $2,000 from the MIM for the Musical Instrument Museum for the transportation for field trips to the MIM, which is just wonderful. And Pinnacle High School received $3,000 from Jostens for faculty appreciation and staff recognition. Pinnacle Peak Preparatory School received $1,200 for their site discretionary fund from Rebecca Clout. And Shadow Mountain High School received $3,000 from Jostens for faculty appreciation and staff recognition, and also $5,500 from PV Schools Education Foundation for the dual enrollment and AP exam. All of these, plus many more I did not mention, help our students to achieve what they do and allow students, whether they have money for AP tests or not, or whatever it is, or being kind, whatever these donations are, we're so grateful. And with that, may I have a motion for the acceptance of gifts and donations, please?
So moved.
Any board member wishing to make a comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we don't have. Next on the agenda is call to the public. Please turn your attention to the video monitors for the next section.
Call to the Public is about to convene. This portion of today's meeting allows the public the opportunity to address the governing board. Although state law does not require that the governing board hold a call to the public, the Paradise Valley Unified School District and its board have chosen to do so because we believe it's important to hear about concerns and issues from our community. While Call to the Public is not designed to be a discussion, the board is here to listen. Due to Arizona open meeting law, the governing board cannot respond to, discuss, or take any action on items brought up during this time. However, staff members may be directed to get back to you and address individual concerns. As a reminder, the point of this and every board meeting is to accomplish the business at hand, and to be able to do so in an open and collaborative way. All in attendance are expected to observe meeting rules as well as rules of politeness and decorum, so that we may serve as an example to our students that issues can be discussed in a respectful and civil manner.
Tonight, we have 6 people who have submitted comment cards prior to the start of the meeting. Each speaker will have 3 minutes for remarks. Those who have asked to speak on agenda items, which we've had, will be recognized at the appropriate time during the meeting. Those agenda items that were removed from the consent agenda will be moved to items for approval following the last agenda item in that category. As a reminder, we ask that you please direct your comments to the board. First, we will please direct your comments to the board, and please state your first and last name as you come to the podium. We'll start with Veronica, I think it's Corcoran, I'm not sure, followed by Diane Neiman.
My name is Veronica Corcoran, and I'm an international wellness expert. I'm also an artist, an architect. Also, I'm ministering to people how to live more healthy and spirit-filled life. I'm sure we all agree that forces way greater than ourselves created this planet, our universe, and our priceless children. Human beings have been made in God's image, but sadly, we are forgetting our divine nature. And it's time we, as parents and educators, protect our children's future well-being. What I mean by that is the problem our children are facing is not visible to our eyes. Even 15 years ago, humans have been exposed to EMF, which is electromagnetic pollution, electromagnetic frequency, 800,000 times more than our grandparents. Our children are bombarded with EMF, and they are given tablets, cell phones, but unless we help them to deal with that kind of a modern stresses, they will not develop into a healthy direction. So we need to upgrade our lifestyle just like we upgrade our phones. Humans, we are the most sophisticated technology. So please let our kids get daily grounding by walking barefoot on real grass, play in mud and with natural elements so they can develop into a healthy humans who can feel their potential. I'm sure every healthy parent and educator wants the best for our children, but we have a huge gap to fill. This is the book that I came across in Hawaii just last year. It's called Evolution Revolution. And look what it actually promotes according to Darwin theory, negating God, negating our divine nature. This is in the book, and it's a little hard to see how we evolved and our human being, we as human beings, our potential, our brain only works like 15%. We can evolve just like Jesus taught us. We can be amazing. We can do miracles. This is not miracle. This is a technology. And sadly, I made a little script on this. That's how this book promotes Darwin evolution in our schools. Are we going to become reptilians? It's really concerning. This is in the books that children are looking, negating everything godly, and promoting humans, to
Your time is up. I'm sorry. Next, Diane Neiman, followed by Michelle Lovett.
I had mentioned before that I had children, that my children graduated from North Canyon and Pinnacle, and I was delighted tonight that a teacher was brought, she was given a reward because she edified and encouraged children. And this is what we really want. And I'm against racial and sexual orientation. I don't believe it's appropriate in the schools, and I'm against gender books. I want them to be banned from our libraries and classrooms. So last Tuesday, Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana, he talked about a book that and other books, and this one particular book was called Gender Queer. And in that, the schools were, this is available in the library, but he said that it was so graphic, they were criticizing him for even reading from the book. And it was interesting that 2 days later, the author of that book was interviewed, and the teacher said, or the person that wrote Gender Queer said, "This is not appropriate for children. I never intended for children to read this book." So my comment is, we do not want things like this that take away from a child's sense of well-being. They're made in God's image, they have great value, and they should be not questioning their gender. And I really, I'm really thankful for the teachers, like they pointed out, Crystal, earlier, how she went out of her way to make the children feel comfortable, to make the children feel valued. And this is what we want. I think the most important thing about why we're here is children. Their future is our future too. And we want them to be people that can go into our military and protect us in our police force, the people that feel good about being Americans, people that feel good about themselves. So this is my agenda to you, is to, really build up the children. Again, I'm very happy that teachers are being rewarded for making children feel valued. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Michelle Lovett, followed by Lily Grisham.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Lovett. I am a Title I pre-K teacher at Indian Bend Elementary School. I have worked as a pre-K teacher in the district for the last 13 years. I would like to explain a little bit about my program. My program is a federally funded program that provides instruction for students demonstrating educational needs. This program is provided at no cost to those students who qualify. Through this program, students are encouraged to learn and play in a safe, caring environment. We are all certified teachers with no more than 15 students and 1 para. Many of our students are English language learners. We provide activities designed to meet their needs for social interaction, cognitive development, and emotional growth. The Arizona Department of Health Services, better known as DHS, regulates our programs, which are housed at 5 Title I schools for a total of 7 Title I pre-K classrooms in our district. The last few years, we continue to be in challenging times in regards to the number of vacancies in our district. A few weeks ago, my para called out and community ed had no one to send to cover for her. Since we are regulated under DHS, we are not part of our school's emergency subplan, which means I was going to be left alone with 15 4-year-olds for a total of 6 hours. I'm not sure if you remember what it's like to be around 4 or 5-year-olds, but I can tell you it's fun, exciting, and exhausting all at the same time. I'm here tonight to say thank you to Tammy Hall, who's the Director of Federal Programs in our district. The day my para called out, I received a message that Tammy Hall would be coming over to relieve me so I would be able to take a lunch and prep that day. If it wasn't for her, I would not have received a break that day. Not only did she come to give me a break, she came prepared with labels to write the students' names to help her identify who she'd be working with. She transitioned them from the bathrooms, which are located down the hall from the classroom, since we do not have a bathroom in our classroom. She transitioned them back to the classroom, worked on an activity with the students, and then took them back to the bathroom before I returned. This is not an easy task to do by yourself with 15 4-year-olds. I would like to also mention that this is not the first time Tammy Hall has stepped up to help in my classroom. Over the last few years, she has volunteered her time to cover when there are no substitutes available in the Title I pre-K classrooms. I want to thank the district for having directors who are willing to go above and beyond for the teachers that work for them. Each month, we recognize teachers and ESPs at the board meetings through props. I would love it if we have some way to recognize the directors and the principals in the district that are doing great things every day. It's been really hard watching the board meetings the last few years with all the negative comments that are being made about our district. For every one mistake, there are at least 50.
Thank you very much. Lily Grisham. Lily Grisham, followed by Michelle Cartwright.
Hi, my name is Lily Gresham. First, I'd like to thank the board members, educators, teachers, and support staff for the difficult jobs that they do. School should be a safe place for kids to learn. I'm a parent of a senior at Horizon High School, and I wrote a letter to the principal earlier today, and I forwarded all of you. Did you get my letter? Okay. I'm just going to reiterate some things on here because I was really not happy with the follow-up, the response letter that I received. Okay, let me just do this quickly. It has come to my attention that there are several violent physical assaults between students on campus during school hours. How often does this happen? Who knows? There was one last 2 weeks ago between two girls, and one beat the crap out of the other one, and she was on the floor bleeding. She was getting dragged by her hair. Both of these physical violent assaults were recorded by students. There was some junior boys one of them was punching the crap out of the other one, and thank goodness one of the aides stepped in. But for the most part, in both of these situations, the students were just standing there, did nothing. I was appalling. I am concerned about these assaults happening because we don't know about them, and we don't know what happens. What is the consequence? What is the school's protocol? What happens when children are assaulted where they're bleeding? I mean, this is not just a little fight, pulling hair and slapping each other. These kids, I'm surprised, didn't have to go to the hospital because I saw the video. And were the police called? Well, what does the school do? What is there, if there is any meaningful consequence? The response that I got from the principal stated that to answer my questions, we investigate all of these incidents. And consequences are assigned according to the parent-student handbook. Okay, so I looked up this parent-student handbook, and the disciplinary action for assault ranges from letter D to letter N. That's 11 different things. For an assault, the consequence could be the parent or guardian conference could be held either face-to-face or by telephone to discuss a plan for positive behavior. Although in the parent handbook, it does state that I looked up, assault is also listed on here as a possible expulsion for the first offense. And it is also listed here under the selected federal and Arizona statute. Assault classification. A person commits assault by intentionally, knowingly, recklessly causing physical injury to another person. So.
Thank you. Next is Michelle Cartwright, followed by Jen Hudson.
My name is Michelle Courtwright, and I have been involved in the district for most of my adult life in one role or another. And for many years, that meant coming to governing board meetings. Over the last few years, many of us who my family call the silent majority have chosen to watch online. We've done that because meetings have been a little uncomfortable, sometimes hostile, and we always walk away feeling a little sad and dismayed. Well, one of you up there reminded me recently that you guys don't have that option. And you can't see a smile, you can't feel support if we're not here in the room. So I'm here to apologize for not being here and for staying away. And I think you're going to see more people that are here to support you. Now, with that said, that doesn't mean we agree with every decision that was made. And you'll still see us here, and we will still try to change your mind. But I hope every time I've been here, and I've been here a lot of times, that I've done that with dignity and respect, because I know that wherever I'm at, somebody is watching me, and I am someone's role model. And it's very important to me that the next generation of leaders know how to advocate for themselves and know how to make change. So I'm hoping that by coming back and continuing this part, we can set that example for these new leaders that are coming up. I know the decisions that you guys have made, not everybody has agreed with, but I truly believe that you've done what you felt was best for students, for staff, and for our district. And I know everybody knows PVEA blue, but I'm not sure everybody knows that PVSEA wears black. So the next time you guys are sitting up here and you feel a little beat up, I want you to look out there and remember the people that are wearing black and blue are here to support our district, our students, our staff, each other, and you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Jen Hudson.
Good evening, President Case, Governing Board members, Dr. Bales, Cabinet, and attendees watching online and here in this room. My name is Jen Hudson, and I'm lucky enough to wear many hats for this district. Today, the hat I'm wearing is that of Nationally Board Certified Teacher and Candidate Support Provider for those exploring National Board Certification. I'm addressing you tonight for two reasons. One, to thank you. Thank you for your support of National Board Certified Teachers, and thank you for your support of the process. Thank you for codifying the support through the bargaining agreement. Two, to highlight the amazing teachers that we have here in the district. These National Board Certified teachers and candidates pursuing National Board Certification are dedicated to their profession, their students, and their classrooms. They are also dedicated to high levels of learning that can only occur when we respect teachers as professionals and value the student learning at the center of everything that we do. This year, we have a strong cohort of teachers pursuing National Board Certification. It is our largest group in recent history. We have up to 20 new candidates, which is 10% of the statewide total. We have 12 continuing candidates, which is 6% of the statewide total. This process of National Board Certification can take up to 3 years to complete and involve hundreds upon hundreds of hours of writing and reflecting. We celebrate these 32 teachers who have decided to embark upon this process and make the commitment this school year. We have many teachers who submitted components and are awaiting their December 9th score release, and we cannot wait to celebrate and support them in their next steps forward. We now have 52 Nationally Board Certified teachers in our district, 22 at elementary sites, 1 at a middle school site, 3 high school sites, and 5 district departments. In addition, we have 7 National Board Certified administrators, administrative TOAs, or directors. Of these 52 National Board Certified teachers, we have over 25 different certificate areas representing a wealth of knowledge and expertise that directly impacts the learning of our students. Research shows that students of NBCTs demonstrate evidence of deeper learning nearly 3 times more frequently than their peers and gain 1 to 2 months of additional learning compared to peers in other classrooms. This district is full of amazing teachers who are supremely dedicated to the learning, both of their students and of their own profession. Thank you for supporting National Board Certified teachers and those candidates pursuing certification. Our district is better because of it.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is items for discussion. Dr. Bells.
Thank you, President Case, Governing Board members, Cabinet guests, and tonight, Ms. Jean Copen, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, and Mr. Jeff Billings, our Director of Instructional Technology, will present on the district's tiered approach to online safety, recent learnings, and some next steps in improving online safety. Ms. Copen.
Good evening, President Case, Governing Board members, Dr. Bales, Cabinet, and guests. Tonight, we bring you a discussion item concerning online safety. As it happens, tonight's discussion follows a sensitive matter that has recently come to our attention involving computer misuse, which caused us great concern. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge the gravity of that situation and assure you that we treat all matters of computer safety with the utmost urgency and care. We want to continually leverage the information that we are learning, as well as the best practices to move our district forward and continually strengthen safety and awareness around technology. The intent of this presentation is to inform the board of the proactive measures PV Schools implements to better ensure computer safety within our schools. This will include information on digital citizenship, firewalls and filters, information from the Family Student Handbook, the district's computer safety framework, and district teams who work together to increase safety. We will also include information on how incidents of computer misuse are addressed for both the student who violates school rules and for any student who needs assistance with their well-being after the incident. Our IT staff work daily to maintain online safety within our schools using best practices, up-to-date training, and partnerships with our industry professionals. We look forward to outlining our tiered framework for providing safe and secure online learning environments for all of our students. Jeff Billings, our Director of IT, will be facilitating our conversation tonight.
Good evening, President Case, Dr. Bills, governing board members, and cabinet. My presentation will present a tiered model we have in PV to address the balance of both online safety and functionality in our schools. Additionally, I will bring you up to date with recently approved frameworks, steps, some approved in the spring of 2023 and implemented this past summer. Finally, I will describe some of the next steps in continuously improving online safety and some recent learning. Governing Board Policy IJNDB is directly pertinent to our discussion tonight. Sections of the policy stipulate that the use of electronic information services must be in support of PV's educational goals. Industry standard security measures in filtering and internet safety are to limit and control access by students, and all employees have the responsibility to educate, supervise, and monitor appropriate usage. I ask that you take particular note of the wording industry standard security measures. I'm going to come back to it, to that wording a little bit later. The Family Student Handbook outlines the delicate balance of furthering academic achievement by providing access to the learning tools students need while also providing computer safety. Our PVUSD Student Parent Handbook outlines policies and expectations for using district computers. Parents are provided a copy annually and signed to acknowledge the information. Additionally, all families are encouraged to review, select an insurance option, and sign a computer usage agreement, which outlines responsibilities, care, educational use, and safety/security. Specifically, in the Family Student Handbook, there are guidelines for acceptable use. 4 that are particularly applicable to our discussion tonight include district purchase computers, telecommunications, and network resources are to be used for educational purposes only. Students shall not purposely submit, publish, display, or retrieve any defamatory, inaccurate, abusive, obscene, profane, threatening, sexually oriented, racially offensive, or illegal material. Students shall not use the network in any way that would disrupt the use of the network by others. Students shall not attempt to harm hardware, software, or data, nor interfere with the security of any computer, telecommunication, or network service. When there is a computer misuse, as soon as an incident is reported, administrators begin to gather information about the incident, which may include speaking to witnesses, reviewing any available evidence, and meeting with the individuals involved to gather their perspectives. During this time frame, a decision is made about whether to engage IT. Excuse me. When an incident of computer misuse is identified, the school and student services must reach consensus on reporting further investigation and support. If the incident involves victims, the well-being of the victim is prioritized by first communicating with parents or guardians of both the offender and the victim, who are informed about the incident and the school's response. Parents' input and support can be crucial in addressing the situation effectively. Victim support often includes offering assistance at school to address any academic or social challenges resulting from the incident. Upon parent request, connections to counseling partnerships can be made. Based on the severity of the rule violation, schools may impose appropriate consequences for the offender. This next slide, online safety and security involves multiple levels of mitigation strategies to reduce risk. All levels include technical components such as firewalls and filters. They also include organizational practices such as digital citizenship, supervision, and handbook policies. Higher level tiers can be implemented as needed. Beginning with Tier 1, there are firewall and content filters. In addition, we can regulate grade level services such as email, chat, and YouTube. The school-wide approach to safety and security, including unique accounts and authentication credentials, is also implemented at this level. Filters and firewalls defend by denying certain known types of nefarious protocols and exploits. Filtering serves defense using a constantly updated category list of websites, for example, and their underlying microservices through a deny, allow action. Filtering categories and lists are provided by vendors and commonly shared in K-12, but they also have the ability for any K-12 customer to locally customize. Filtering includes not only internet protocols such as web traffic, but services like email. With these services and traffic come risk. For example, K-12 is now #1 in ransomware attacks across the country out of all private and public sectors. In PV, we have 2 specific committees I'd like to point out here, as they help much in guiding us in online function and safety, specifically the Data Governance and Cybersecurity and the Information Technology Committee, DGCS and ITC respectively. These committees are represented by community, UPC, teachers, support staff, school and district administrators, students, and IT staff who meet monthly to share their voice and thoughts. These committees also help to create awareness and understanding in our community around the safe and responsible use of technology. During the 2022-2023 school year, the IT department and data governance cybersecurity reached consensus on 9 different frameworks in information technology. These frameworks address cybersecurity, student data privacy, artificial intelligence, and digital citizenship. Cabinet approved all 9 frameworks in the spring of 2023. Several action steps from these frameworks were initiated this summer and early fall, and others will unfold in the coming months. Some of these action steps are more complicated and have bigger risk, so they will take more time for fruition. Getting back to this graphic, Tier 2 is targeted for a smaller subset of students who have been identified as needing more support, guidance, structure, and appropriate use and behaviors with technology. Mitigation discussions can include classroom, school, administration, parents, nursing, psychologists, and student services. Several foundational functions still apply, but some may increase in rigidity, such as an increase in observation, an increase in digital citizenship lessons, and/or a decrease in screen time. Tier 3 is a more intensive structure and access to technology, specific only to websites and portals, adopted curriculum, and a few approved supplements. Reduction in core services and mandatory participation in those digital citizenship lessons. District-wide grade level bands are used, providing optimized settings. Parents must be engaged and kept up to date on progress and status. School administration and student services must be in agreement with the need to place a user's account into this online behavior support environment. Supervision within the classroom is critical for all aspects of safety, and computers are no exception. The additional level of security with physical proximity and involvement of the teacher profession are critical. When incidents of computer misuse are identified, they are addressed promptly and consequences may be applied as appropriate, including input from administration and other school professionals. PV Schools provides a family student handbook, as I said, that includes information to help with understanding of online expectations. Each student is also expected to follow the PVUSD computer usage agreement, which includes topics like care, appropriate educational use, etc., and families are encouraged to review, sign, and select an insurance option. The next slide before you. Before the pandemic, and in concert with data governance, IT was developing an evaluation system to address the increase in apps, portals, extensions, and add-ons that were being requested as technology became more widespread in education. We established operational metrics to assess privacy, security, total cost of ownership, and curricular relevance. We referred to the app portal extension model used by Common Sense Media. During the pandemic, as you can imagine, the request for new online tools and resources to provide instruction and schooling saw a very large increase across K-12. The app portal approval process continues today and has been enhanced by bringing in curriculum specialists, principals, and directors. There are now some 763 apps, portals, and extensions are now vetted and scored as preferred, which is adopted curriculum, green, which is approved, yellow, meaning it's approved but with caution, and red, not approved. The IT department, data governance, cybersecurity, and ITC have strong motivation to continue efforts towards online safety this year. One of the planned discussions and consensus recommendations that I'll be bringing to Cabinet within 60 days is making the list of preferred and approved apps and portals as those being only ones allowed through the firewalls and filters for Tier 1. This represents a fundamental shift in the use of content filtering, moving away from relying on vendors, updating sites and portals and categories, and PV employees identifying sites and portals to be blocked or allowed, to here's the sub 1,000 sites and portals we've vetted and approved, block the rest of the internet. Now nearly 2 billion sites. Restrictions in Tier 3 could then be, for example, preferred only the adopted curriculum, a much smaller list of apps and portals. Coupled with this digital citizenship is the responsible use of technology. It is important for people of all ages to learn about digital literacy and citizenship so that they can use technology safely and ethically. Some in PV have been teaching digital citizenship in our classrooms for several years using the Common Sense Media framework. The IT department maintains a website of the resources and tips for teachers and families at digitalcitizen.pvschools.net, and maintains a Google group where we share notices with schools. The resources at Common Sense Media are aligned to grade levels and leverage our core curricular standards. In the 2022-23 school year, the ITC and DGCS decided and recommended to the Cabinet in the spring of 2023 that digital citizenship and literacy should be a standard in PV. This means that all students in the district would learn the practices. Coupled with the new 2022 Arizona Department of Education Technology standards, digital literacy and citizenship will start rolling out this fall and spring under the banner of Cyber Active Schools. The United Parent Council wishes very much to reach out to local PTOs and PTAs to support and gather their input. Wildfire Elementary School, who you heard tonight, I'm going to say again, is a great example of a PV school that is already practicing digital citizenship with integrity. They have a program that is embedded in their core curriculum across grade levels and teaches students about digital citizenship, literacy, and critical thinking. In the digital world, the end user is considered the last line of defense, and some would argue the best. Educating students about safety and appropriate behavior choices will be critical. In 2023, the IT department and affiliated stakeholder groups researched, discussed, and recommended to the Cabinet that they implement a system to decrypt data packets traveling over the internet when they enter the school's digital environment. The process takes milliseconds so that it does not disrupt or slow down students' computer use. The purpose of this system is to give school administrators better visibility into students' online behavior. The Cabinet approved the recommendation for student accounts only. Implementation began with volunteer high school students in late spring, early summer of 2023. By mid-September, all student accounts at the middle school level had been included, and all high school student accounts will be implemented before the end of October. Reporting processes will be operationalized with school administration, and by the end of November, at which time student accounts at all elementary schools will be implemented. The IT department is already in discussion with their affiliated stakeholder groups on 4 topics for recommendation within the next 60 days. First is a product called Gaggle. This is a tool that uses machine learning to assess content in core student interaction channels such as web history, clicks, email, chat, and groups. It can be used to monitor and alert 24/7, 365 text-based communication for topics such as bullying, suicide, hate speech, and violence. The tool can be procured through established cooperatives and funded by bond investments. It is made possible because we now decrypt and encrypt students' digital traffic. Online services. In collaboration with stakeholder groups, IT will be conducting an updated vetting of online services for student accounts. This includes if and when students should have email, should they have Drive, Should they have YouTube, streaming, social media, and other services? The online world has changed significantly since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. IT and the stakeholder groups need to take a deep, collaborative dive on an updated consensus recommendation to the Cabinet. Apps and portals. IT and the stakeholder groups will decide if the state of the internet is such that our preferred and approved apps and portals should serve as the only universal Tier 1 online resources for students. Grade level differentiation, timing, and any needed support that teachers may have to adjust curriculum can be part of any consensus recommendation to the Cabinet. Digital citizenship. The IT and affiliated stakeholder groups will be rolling out digital citizenships at schools, a partnership between the media centers, the classrooms, the front offices, the PTOs and PTAs, UPC, the ID department, and our school resource officers will be necessary and is planned. I have relearned that authentic growth occurs largely from reflecting on successes and failures. The internet is highly dynamic, and restricting it further would likely yield a stronger security position. However, restrictions could also yield a tighter focus on standards in schools. Today, said standards should also include digital literacy and citizenship. Stakeholder collaboration is a winning and sustainable formula to guide administrative details. I have been an advocate for about 7 years now that less is actually more when it comes to the dynamic internet in K-12. Over the last few years, I have held a growing concern that industry standards for security, like contents and filters, are not enough for online safety in K-12. Numbers of sites and services are growing too fast to operationalize safety, and there are too many online distractions to learning. Fundamental shifts in our administrative approaches are likely necessary and likely need to be done sooner rather than later. We are well positioned in PV to do just that and lead K-12 while increasing the potential of what technology really has to offer for increasing student academic achievement in core curricular standards and digital literacy. My role requires that I learn, improve, and move forward. I choose to remain focused and roll up my sleeves in collaborative efforts with any and all stakeholders in the pursuit of safe and responsible online learning. And with that, thank you for your time, and I will try to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Billings. We have no public comments on this. Any board members wishing to make a comment?
No, I would. Yes, thank you, Mr. Billings. I remember being on the Data Governance Committee with you.
Sure.
A task force, excuse me. And I know you've had these concerns for a long time, and we've discussed them, and we're kind of ahead of the game with it. I appreciate it. When I was at Eagle Ridge, I also remember the PTO there. They had their own digital citizenship there. I know the groups out there, the parent groups, are very much in support of doing that and supporting that. I'm very excited about it. I got just a couple questions. On the approved apps list, that one that's got the green, the yellow, that coding, how many are on there right now, about?
There's a total of 763.
That's quite a lot to keep track of, right?
Yes, sir, it is.
It is, I guess.
And it's getting more difficult because if you look at an app, like think of it on your phone, they do updates, and everybody just kind of, shouldn't say everybody, my wife and I do, and then I have to go back and clean it up again. But, we just kind of flip through it. Yeah. Get me to my app, right? Well, we have to go back. It's a continual vetting process is what I'm trying to get at. We approve an app today. A year from now, they've all of a sudden got three more vertical attack sectors or horizontal attack vectors I have to worry about. So it's a continual process. That's correct.
Yeah.
And all of these apps were either the curriculum adoption or submitted by educators and principals.
Exactly. So it's not, once it's on the list, it's just forget about it. It's continually being monitored. Yeah, I understand that. I just want to bring that to everybody else's attention. How many are already on the list?
That's correct.
And you talk about filtering. Now, does that include things like geofencing around schools where someone could use it somewhere else, but as soon as they get on our property, it can't be used? Certain kind of applications. Is that one of the kind of filters we're looking at?
No, are you talking about geolocating or I'm not sure quite what, I'm sorry.
I became aware of this idea where, let's just take Facebook, for example. Okay, you could ask through the company, say, well, if they're in our schools, they can stop it from being used at those schools in a district area. That's why they call it geofencing, this area.
Yeah, we can geofence. I mean, that's what we do with these filters. We say, no, we're not going to let this in.
Okay, and with the AI, and am I taking too much time? Anybody else got a question? So with the AI, now that's something that's a real can of worms, right? Because, I mean, do we even use it ourselves to help with the looking for these security breaches, et cetera?
Yes, sir. Unfortunately, those wishing to attack us are using it as well.
Yeah, so it's not like you can just ban AI entirely.
Technology is traditionally agnostic. We as humans decide whether we're going to use it for good or bad.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is, the way it's always been.
So what I'm saying,
Citizenship and literacy is so critical. We got to start teaching some generations.
oh, I agree. I agree. They talk about kids being abducted. Well, they're getting abducted every day on the internet. You know, not even leaving anywhere. That's just taking over their being. But that's another issue. So AI, there's no just one yes or one no. We've got to look at all the aspects of that when we develop our policy.
AI in particular, we have a pilot going on at the high school level with parent permission in all of our ELA classes. And what's happening is your ELA is going to be, in my opinion, and this is coming from a very strong STEAM now. The way you ask the question is how you can really make AI sing for you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't know how to frame that question, you're just going to get a bunch of junk. But if you know how to frame that question, and they call it prompt engineers. So that's the future of those students who like English language arts. Good. You're going to have a good job waiting for you called prompt engineering. So.
Okay, so that's part of that large language formats kind of thing.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
I got you. All right. Because things like Khan Academy, they're using it right now themselves. They have their own.
That is correct.
Okay. So, but you're all looking into that. I just wanted to hear where we're at.
Big time.
Thanks for answering that question. I appreciate it.
It's impacting us quite a bit in IT already.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mrs. Baker?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for the time and dedication and commitment you put into ensuring our kids' online safety. As a parent of a high schooler who likes to challenge firewalls sometimes, I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. I do have one question. You talked about the wildfire digital citizenship program.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that different, and is that executed different than like a Fireside or an Eagle Ridge digital citizenship program?
Well, there's going to be a very similar model, okay? And where we have good, strong PTOs, PTAs, we'll absolutely want to engage them, right? Where we may not, that's where UPC wants to engage. And how do they support and help develop that?
For the schools that don't have the okay, that was my other question for the, okay.
We have, in our school, we have teachers who teach digital citizenship lesson, and we have several SROs who have been trained in it, and they're wonderful. They teach wonderful lessons. I don't know about that one. Friend of mine. Stay out of trouble.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Mrs. Christensen?
Thank you for the presentation. It was a lot to take in. My brain is about to explode with all this information. First of all, would like to ask, what has changed between the plan that we've had? And I know that you've been working on this a long time, but what has changed since the incident that occurred where the brave parents came and shared an unfortunate situation? I want to know what has changed then and to now. And I know that several of the district employees have, addressed it and tried to get on board to fix that.
Well, on a personal scale, I've changed. On a professional scale, there's been a number of incidents this fall that I've reflected on, and so I think the best thing that I can do is there's an increase. Best way I can describe it to me is there's a stronger urgency of time. When your industry is number one on a major attack vector, ransomware, there's urgency. And I can't wait for the feds and the state to get their ducks in the line and figure out how they're going to do this kind of thing, right? I can't do it. I have to move. And so I'm trying to move. The nice thing is we're converging very nicely in terms of we've got the frameworks, they know how to guide us. We're developing those practices, we're taking action steps. So I don't know if I'm really answering your question. A stronger sense of urgency, perhaps?
Yeah, my point was just what are we doing to prevent this in the future?
I think,
But-
Mr.
yeah.
Billings, I appreciate what you said earlier about your timeline to address these 4 topics, specifically, Gaggle as an implementation. You've set a timeline and a target to take some action very quickly. And it still honors our process with stakeholder input. But yet I appreciate your sense of urgency and to come together with something in a relatively short period of time. So thank you.
Thank you.
I have a
Thank
lot
you.
more questions, but I'll let Ms. Greenberg
Mrs.
go.
Greenberg?
Okay, so AI, I know that's AI, digital citizenship. AI is a double-edged sword, and it is here, and we have to address it. So kudos to you for taking on a lot of these head on, because there's no easy answers. We have to balance between censoring and allowing and exploring, and there's no easy answer. But I know that some individuals, a parent had recently reached out to me for AI. I know that some of the teachers are now checking. I don't know if there's apps that the teachers use to check to make sure that there's no plagiarism and that ChatGPT isn't used to create, term papers. But I've actually had an opposite incident where parents reached out to me that has a wonderful student that is a brilliant writer and is actually opposite, was accused of cheating because the writing was so brilliant. And so how are we balancing that in the classroom from a teacher's tool?
Well, what my former boss, Dan, and my new boss, Jean, have well, did I hear one of you laugh or? Oh, sorry. I was like, we had to do significant professional development. We're trying, how do we use technology for good? That's what it's about. Because if you can leverage that, you can accelerate things and get that X factor in there. But we got to cover some bases, and I think there's just some stuff we need to do to get there, and we're getting there.
I'm almost done. I apologize, Mrs. Greenberg. Do we have a definition for digital citizenship? Because it sounds good, behave online, follow the rules, but that's can be a slippery slope as well. How far does it go? I heard a lot of information on.
Well, digital citizenship and embedded in what Cabinet approved was Common Sense Media, and they're a nonprofit consortium. that um, there's 8 standards, right? So it gets into everything from cyberbullying to digital dust or cookie crumbs or however you want to express it. You know, that once you put something on the internet, it's there for good. You know, um, the so there's 8 different standards, and they align pretty good with COSN, which is kind of a consortium of school networks. They have standards, digital citizenship, and they align with the ADE standards. So a lot of things are aligning.
Okay.
We're all trying to figure out this thing called the internet, right?
Right.
And now you throw artificial intelligence on it, it's another level.
I think my concern with the digital citizenship is, I was hearing with Gaggle, heard hate speech. Who decides what's hate? Like if I say Tony wears too many bolo ties, is that considered hate speech or?
Well, I wouldn't consider that hate speech.
It would
but-
be. That's them's fighting words, right, Tony?
But to answer your question, one of the reasons we're specifically looking at Gaggle is I've watched them for about 4 years now. They've got what's called, and we require this in all the companies we work with in artificial intelligence. One of the standards, one of the metrics, we now have a metric, a system for how we evaluate artificial intelligence. Okay. Because there was no industry standard out there, right? So we developed one and have shared it with many school districts and many organizations and a number of companies now. But they, how do I want to say this? I don't know how I want to say this because I forgot what I was going to say. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Just the question was about hate speech. Who decides? Is there like are you over there deciding?
I hope not, but if that's what I'm told to do, then that's what I'll do. But they have what's called a human in the loop. All the people we do business with in terms of artificial intelligence, you have to have a human in the loop, right? So they're vetting it. Gaggle has trained specialists. That's how they run it 24/7, 365. I've tried to do that in my department. I couldn't do it. I burned out too many people. It just doesn't work. So we're bringing in their experts we would have a calling tree, right? So they're watching. Hey, there's a little bit of activity. Hey, this is bubbling. It's called intelligence, right? And it's bubbling. This one's turning into a whole nother thing. And then we have a calling tree. Who are they supposed to call for what kind of alert? It's just like incident response whenever there's a dirt cert situation. There's a calling tree. Who are you going to call for what? And who do you call if they're not available? So the first call goes to Chris and Laura sitting there in the back. They're student services on the Saturday night at 11 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'll wrap up because we can geek out on this later. I have so many other questions, but it's really
good stuff.
It is good stuff. I have an IT background too, but it's just a balance. It's a hard balance between privacy and safety and freedom to learn. So yeah, I don't envy you with this.
Yeah.
Thank you for looking into this, though. It's a very important topic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Greenberg?
Professor Billings, I know that you have, been working on this for decades now. And I thank you and your department as always, and, for being such a leader in all of this. The question, and for showing us that it's constantly evolving. I mean, we may have had it right yesterday, and today suddenly we don't because something else popped up. And I think that's the nature of the beast. And I appreciate that we're trying to tame that beast the best that we can and hope that it doesn't grow another head tomorrow. When we talk digital citizenship, the slide talks about today's students need a new set of skills to thrive as learners, leaders, and digital citizens. Common Sense talks about an independent voice for kids, families, and schools everywhere. Obviously, we've talked about including PTO, PTSAs. We've talked about UPC. What is the role of the family in expanding digital citizenship?
Most of the lessons that I've studied there's lessons to do at home. There are tips for families. Families need to have some of these hard conversations. I've had them with my kids, been there, done that, don't want to do it again, kind of thing, right? But it's part of raising a kid, right? So so those lessons are encouraged to take home, you know. And the support mechanisms is there. At the digitalcitizen.pvschools.net, you can by grade, by age, by topic, by conversation, you name it, it's there. And tied back to the state's core curricular standards.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Billings, thank you so much. Many of the things you spoke about are way over my head. And yes, my head is spinning also, but I appreciate your involvement in so many aspects of this for years and years and decades. So thank you. And I'm sure this is an ongoing learning experience for us all as technology continues to change for the better and for the worse. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is items for discussion. Dr. Bells.
Thank you, President Case, governing board members, cabinet, and guests. And tonight, our next presentation, Mrs. Berrigan will present on our completed ADA playground assessment. Ms. Berrigan.
Thank you, Dr. Bales and President Case. This is a little bit of a unique presentation and unique information we have tonight for a couple of reasons. One, we've never talked about this before as a board or really holistically as a district. And two, there's no other district in the state that I'm aware of that has undergone an assessment like this for their playgrounds as it relates to ADA, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act. This came about because in my couple of years here in the district, we had run into a couple of schools that had some issues with accessibility to playgrounds and just the playground equipment themselves. And I worked with Dr. Jarris on those things as well as our facilities and construction, wonderful folks to get those things remedied. But in that, I thought that there may be some other issues around the district that we might need to address. And so we self-selected to go through an assessment to review all of our playgrounds. And tonight I have for you some detailed information on that. And this is the agenda. We'll talk a little bit about the scope of work for this assessment, the timeline, just what is ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, what they refer to as program access, the process that was used for the assessment, a transition plan to remedy our situation, and some observations, just showing you some of the observations that the group who did the assessment found, as well as some next steps. So starting with the scope of work, we had the accessibility review of playgrounds conducted by a company called the WT Group Accessibility Practice. Their focus was on accessibility to playgrounds, so how students with physical disabilities have access to the playgrounds, as well as accessibility from the playground surface itself to the playground equipment, and then inclusivity, meaning do we have pieces of equipment that students with physical disabilities are able to play on or play with? The next step was to determine any deficiencies that needed to be addressed and then provide the district with a summary of those deficiencies. This started back in the fall of 2020, that should say 2022 because we're not in fall of 2023 yet. Sometimes when I'm working in multiple years, I get confused. So fall of 2022. The district began discussions to determine if we could contract with experts in the field of ADA playgrounds. We do actually have someone in the district who has some training with ADA playgrounds. You actually met him before the board meeting and then approved him to be the new construction supervisor, Mr. John Glennie. So he does have some information in that area and some training in that area, but ADA and playgrounds specifically can be a little bit more complicated, and so we wanted to ensure we had somebody who had an expertise in that area to support us. We obtained written quotes and selected WT Group to conduct the review, and in spring of 2023, that is technically correct, WT Group conducted the assessment of all 93 district playgrounds. And you may say, why do we have so many? We don't have that many schools. Many of our sites, particularly our elementary school sites, have multiple playgrounds. Then in May of 2023, they provided us with a draft findings report and some transition plans to remedy any deficiencies that we had. The summer of 2023, we discussed those findings and started discussing plans for repair or renovations to some of those pieces and beginning repairs. And I would add that a lot of these things, because we did already have somebody here who understood ADA as it relates to playgrounds, we do those things in the summer anyway. A lot of that has to do with like rubberized surface replacement or fluffing up the rubberized wood chips and things of that nature. So you'll see some of those things listed on here, and those are always in our plan to take care of anyway. And then now in September of 2023, we're presenting to the governing board and the public for any community feedback. So what is ADA? That became effective in January 26th of 1992, and it provides a comprehensive set of civil rights protections for individuals with disabilities. There are 4 areas with 4 different titles, but the one that's applicable to school districts is Title II for state and local government services. In Title II, as I said, that applies to our services and our facilities. It applies to the design and construction of new sites, as well as any changes that we make to existing sites and making sure that those are accessible. We have responsibilities within Title II to review existing sites and determine where we have any deficits or deficiencies, and then create a transition plan to remedy those situations. And it goes by the 2010 standards for accessible design. Next, they have in the statute something that's referred to as program access. In this case, that means access to the playgrounds, the playground program effectively. So district programs must be accessible programs. Existing sites don't have to be retrofit. If there's more than one playground site on a campus, so for example, for kids age 5 to 12, only one of those has to be accessible. The other can remain as is, as long as we have one accessible playground. And then the district can make it scheduled to meet our mandates in that way that's consistent with our resources. Meaning, if we have deficiencies that totaled $10 million and we only have $1 million currently to address those, we need to address the most significant deficiencies with that $1 million and then work on obtaining funds to be able to address any following deficiencies. Those are random numbers, not applicable to our district. With the WT process, they inspect every aspect of the playground. And again, they go by the 2010 standards as well as any Arizona requirements that might be more stringent than those standards. They really just use simple tools to take care of that, including tape measures, levels, and their phone apps so that it can take pictures and provide us with visuals of where we have deficiencies. And then they have their checklists that they use for their quality control. In our transition plan, we have to ensure that our playgrounds are accessible, so can students with disabilities get to our playgrounds. And then we begin accessing retrofits throughout the schools. We plan those retrofits, and then we note the date when we are able to take care of that remedy, and that's all part of the transition plan. In determining the transition plans, the factors to be considered are the severity of the deficiency. The more severe the deficiency, the quicker we want to be able to address that issue. Also, can we take care of some things that are simple, low-hanging fruit with our existing staff resources? So as I mentioned, like fluffing up the wood chips to make sure that they meet where they're supposed to meet with the concrete that is their barrier is something we can do with existing staff resources. Let's get that done quickly as well. And then we focus on our high-use site by students with disabilities. We have some sites that don't have students with any physical disabilities, and we have some sites that have many students with physical disabilities, and so we would focus our efforts accordingly. Here are some of the observations that were found. There were 35 school sites, and as mentioned, the 93 playgrounds. We did have 247 findings, a little more than I would have liked to have seen, but a lot of them are very small findings, and a lot of them we've addressed already. 47 of those are for accessible route findings. In other words, how accessible is it to get to that playground for a student with disabilities? And then 200 play area findings, so actual equipment findings. Here's an example or a couple of examples of no routes to play areas at Desert Springs and Indian Bend. That grass surface, and it's dead grass, but it's grass. That grass surface is not accessible for students with disabilities, for example, a student in a wheelchair, to be able to get to the playground equipment in either of those places. These are some play area elements that had some issues in the one at Palomino Primary on the left. That transfer platform is too low. It's under 5 inches, and I believe those have to be 6 inches from the ground. Additionally, the surface is low there in that Greyhawk Elementary, so you can see that there's sort of a gap between that tool. I'm sure it has a name. What'd you call it? A level? That's the word. I do know home improvement projects. So there you have the rubberized surface and the wood chips. They should be at an even level, and you can see that there's a gap between there. They are not at an even level. We did have 41 of our 93 playgrounds meet accessibility requirements, and those are a few of them right there. As of September 7th, and we're a few weeks past that, so there's actually more remedies to these situations than we have here, but 84 of the identified areas have already been remedied. Those efforts include continuing the implementation of our playground maintenance plan that we've had in the district. That includes regular inspection of our playground equipment. As well, we completed our 2023 summer playground projects. You can see you approved some additional ones this evening, which will help us come into compliance at those locations. And that includes some installation of rubberized surface and replacing of wood chips, as well as modifications to some of the play structures to meet those ADA requirements. There are 12 identified areas that we're working with vendors on to address those, including some slope adjustments of the rubberized surface. That rubberized surface is that big cohesive surface that's generally under the playgrounds and provides sort of a soft landing for students when they're being a little clumsy. And then modifying specific play structures for compliance as well. So we are going to continue to evaluate those projects that are remaining strategically to include those in our near range and long range plans for making sure that they're taken care of. So what's next? We, as staff in the district, digest the reports and recommendations from WT Group. And that's been primarily our facilities and construction department, and they're working very quickly and very hard to take care of these items. They will provide us, WT Group will provide us with the final report. We just have draft reports right now. And then they will also, part of their scope of work was to train members of our staff. So we will have whoever replaces John Glennie and a couple of other staff that we have in the district to make sure that now that we've undergone this and know what we need to take care of, that we have staff in-house so that we don't have to continually undergo an assessment by an outside organization. And then our staff will continue with that implementation ongoing. Before I take any questions, I would just say our district has an excellent reputation for the care and concern we have for our special education students, and that's primarily recognized in the classroom, but we want to make sure that that's also recognized in the facilities and playgrounds that we provide our students with special needs. So happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much. We had no public comment on this. Are there any board members wishing to make a comment? Mrs. Baker?
Thank you, Mrs. Berrigan. As a former special ed teacher and employee of Foundation for Blind Children, this makes me sad that we had so many, but happy that we're remedying it. And I just have a couple of questions.
Absolutely.
Okay. Do we have a budget or timeline for this, or is that part of the recommendation process that we're going through right now?
That'll be part of the recommendation process we're going through. There is a total cost. Dr. Davis, will you help me remember the total cost they estimated? I think it's just under $1 million. Around $900-some thousand is what WT Group estimated as the total cost to remedy all of these items. And some of those things, because we can do them in-house with our staff, won't cost us anything other than our staff time. So the total cost is just under $1 million.
Okay, thank you. And then our newer campuses or previous playground upgrades, were those the ADA requirements taken into account for
Yes,
those? So those
absolutely.
are already, okay.
Yep, those are, our newer campuses are obviously in a better set of circumstances than our older campuses or our campuses that have had recent playground modifications done to them. However, you'll still see some a very common finding was like the wood chips
Yeah.
not being up to level. It was the time of year when they did the assessment, which was in the spring, and it's generally, we wait till the summer to get those fluffed back up. And so we'll just have a continuous cycle for making sure that that transition material is good for our students.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Any other comments? Mr. Penter?
Yeah, yeah, thank you for looking into this. I remember, when I did the web pages for Eagle Ridge, we went through all this training to make sure those were accessible.
Mhm.
I'm a little surprised that this is the first time that's kind of been looked at here. Now, maybe you asked this already, but the future playgrounds that go into new schools and such, we're gonna make sure this gets taken care of so there's no retrofitting has to occur.
Absolutely. Those are already requirements that we follow for any new playgrounds, Mr. Pantera. As you saw, the two that you approved this evening, those will all meet those requirements, and that's the purpose behind those projects.
Because it's a law, right? The 88 is a law we have to
Yes,
follow. So I mean,
absolutely.
is there any timelines, specific timelines about this?
There's not. That was sort of the bullet point that said, there has to be a goodwill effort made on the part of the district. And I believe that, remedying nearly a half of those findings within a short period of time shows goodwill. And we have intentions to remedy the rest of these very quickly. I wouldn't pressure Dr. Davis on a timeline yet because he's still working with vendors on determining some of those bigger projects that may need to be done. But I can tell you I have hopes in my mind of a timeline.
Thank you. I know I'm promoting these things, like especially the rubberized part. My grandson, Tony the fifth, he's got a fractured wrist because he fell off of some monkey bars, which would have much worse if there wasn't protective, not in our district. It's in another state. But, so it's near and dear to my heart, playground safety.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that presentation and answering my questions. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mrs. Greenberg?
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Berrigan. Thank you, Dr. Davis. Couple questions. So where we have schools with 2 playgrounds and you said only one has to be accessible,
Correct.
are we talking like a kindergarten playground and then a playground that's utilized by non-kindergartners?
Yeah, sometimes that might be the case. They may be different level areas, but most of our playgrounds for our elementary schools are rated for 5 through 12-year-olds. That generally covers our elementary population. So long as one of those is taken care of, we should be good. If there's one that has a different age group on there, we would go after the one that covers the largest number of age groups so that we're taking care of that piece.
And then how high up does this go in terms of, middle school and high schools? Are we talking tennis courts at high schools? Are we talking?
We very specifically looked at the scope of playgrounds because that's where we had been recognizing that there were some issues along the way. I'll tell you, the very specific issue was at Sonoran Sky. And if any of you know the campus, the playground is way off in the corner of the school, very, very far away from the building. And it's a retention area to get to it or a long way around. And we actually had to add a significant amount of concrete to provide a path over and we have students there that have physical disabilities. So if we hear any issues like that, we want to take care of those quickly. So we'll continue to look for those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other Mrs. Christensen?
Thank you, Mrs. Berrigan. In terms of being out of, I'm not sure if I'm using the right term, but being out of compliance, of the obvious not being accessible to students is the example you gave. What are the negative consequences of not doing this in terms of, are there any fines or, obviously safety concerns would be one, we want to keep all our children safe, but what are the other consequences of not doing these other than accessibility to students?
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Christensen. From my perspective, the safety of the students is the biggest concern. So that's really how we're attacking the ones that we want to fix first. They haven't discussed any fines. When I've read through the Title II portions, I'm not aware of any fines. Certainly a parent being upset for not having the appropriate equipment or the appropriate accessibility to the equipment is a concern of mine as well. but I'm not aware of any fines. There are no fines. The purpose is to show the intent, as they talk about in the statute, that we have to show a goodwill effort to ensure that we're taking care of things, and I believe we can absolutely show that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I just want to thank you for your presentation. That was wonderful. Thank you for all the work you have done in this area. Before we adjourn, I'd like to remind you that the next regular board meeting will be held on Thursday, October 5th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. The meeting's adjourned.